The stars were cold that night, sharp, distant points of light glittering against the black void. Captain Michael Harris sat alone in the command chair of the USS Resolute, the largest and most advanced warship ever stationed at the edge of the Sol system. Neptune floated like a pale ghost below them, its blue storms churning slowly, indifferent to the humans watching from orbit. Around the planet, Earth's outer defense grid pulsed faintly, stations and satellites humming with energy, scanning deep space for threats that everyone had once believed would never come. But the threat had already come. And it had already killed. Michael hadn't slept in 72 hours. His eyes burned from staring at reports, casualty lists, grainy drone footage of colonies engulfed in plasma fire. Colony Vega 7 annihilated. Mining Station Atlas vaporized. Orbital Habitat Armstrong broken apart, drifting in pieces. There had been no warning. No call for parley. No demand for surrender. The alien ships had jumped into the Vega sector without broadcasting an identity code, fired on every human installation they detected, and jumped out again before Earth's closest defense fleet could even respond. 3 colonies gone. Over 400,000 men, women, and children dead. Michael clenched the armrest of his chair so hard his knuckles whitened. His crew worked in silence around him, the bridge lit only by the soft glow of consoles and tactical holos. They were all exhausted, but not from lack of sleep. The silence was heavy with grief and with something darker anger. Captain. Michael turned toward the voice. Lieutenant Rachel Carter sat at the communications console, her blonde hair tied back in a severe bun, her eyes rimmed with red. Fleet Command just transmitted the final draft. It's been approved by the Council. They want it sent immediately. Michael's throat was dry. Put it on screen. Rachel tapped a key, and the main display filled with stark white letters on a field of black. There were no symbols of Earth, no seals, no sign of diplomacy. Just words raw and direct. To the unknown aggressors. You have taken human lives without cause or warning. This is not an act of war. This is murder. You have one chance. Return our people's remains. Surrender those responsible for the attacks. Fail to comply, and humanity will not merely respond, we will make sure there is no second war. This is your single warning. Earth United Command. The words seemed to hang in the air long after the display dimmed. For a moment, no one spoke. Even the constant background hum of the ship felt louder. Rachel broke the silence first. Her voice was quiet but steady. Do you think they'll answer? Michael didn't reply right away. He stood slowly, letting his boots echo against the deck as he stepped closer to the screen, as though he could burn the words into memory. They'll answer, he said finally, his voice low. One way or another. The words weren't just for Rachel. They were for everyone on the bridge, for everyone listening across the ship. This wasn't like the first days of the space age, when humanity had sent signals into the void hoping for anyone, to respond. Back then, humanity had begged to be noticed, begged to belong among the stars. Now humanity wasn't asking. Now humanity was warning. Michael turned toward his executive officer, Commander Blake Ramirez, a tall man with dark eyes and a square jaw. Transmit it, Michael ordered. Full spectrum, every band, every relay. I want it across the entire local sector inside the hour. Blake nodded sharply. Yes, sir. The crew worked quickly. Within minutes, the message was racing outward, carried on light waves, bouncing from satellites, amplified through jump relays until it would reach every corner of known space within days. The deed was done. And then came the waiting. 24 hours later, the bridge was still wrapped in tension like a coiled spring. The crew worked quietly, performing routine scans and patrol sweeps, but every ear was tuned for the sound they all dreaded and expected: an incoming transmission. Michael stood near the tactical console, staring at the holographic map of local space. Anything from the outer sectors? He asked. Negative, Blake replied. Just civilian traffic and colony reports. Michael nodded. He wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or anxious. No reply meant the aliens were thinking or plotting. Then Rachel's console pinged, a sharp, cold tone that cut through the bridge like a blade. "Captain," she said, her voice suddenly tight. "Incoming transmission. Unknown origin. It's coming through on all frequencies at once." Michael's stomach turned to ice. "Put it through." The main display flared to life, not with words this time, but with a sound that made everyone on the bridge flinch. Harsh, grating static, followed by a voice that was guttural, metallic, and dripping with contempt. "Humans. You presume to threaten us? You are nothing. You are prey. We took what we wished because you were too weak to stop us. And when we tire, we will come again, and there will be nothing left of your kind but ashes drifting in the dark." The voice cut off, leaving only silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Michael's jaw clenched until it ached. He could feel the heat rising in his chest, a surge of fury so strong it was almost blinding. "They mock us," Blake said finally, his voice low and dangerous. "They think we're afraid," Rachel whispered. Michael turned back toward the center of the bridge. His voice was iron when he spoke. "Get me fleet command. Now." He wasn't going to beg. He wasn't going to negotiate. If the aliens wanted war, they had just ensured that Earth would give them something far worse. Not a battle. Not even a war. Retribution. The war room beneath Geneva was buried 3 kilometers below the surface, a fortress of steel and composite designed to survive anything short of planetary annihilation. Its walls hummed with hidden servers, encrypted uplinks, and layers of defenses that would have made any invading force think twice. General Sarah Whitaker stood at the head of the table, hands clasped behind her back. Her sharp gray uniform caught the glow of the overhead holodisplays. She had been in the service for 40 years, seen a dozen crises come and go, but nothing like this. Holograms of admirals, generals, and planetary governors flickered around the table, each attending remotely from Earth, Mars, Luna, and every major colony still intact. The room felt tense, every breath held as if waiting for her to speak the words they all knew were coming. They refused. Her voice was calm, controlled, but each syllable carried the weight of finality. "They didn't just refuse," she continued, her steely eyes sweeping the room. "They mocked us. They promised to return and wipe us out completely." For a moment, silence ruled the room. No one dared interrupt. Captain Michael Harris, standing rigidly at her side, broke the stillness. "Then we moved to Directive 7. There it was. The phrase that had lingered like a storm cloud for decades. Directive 7, the contingency plan for humanity's most dangerous moment, drafted by a previous generation who had only imagined a day like this might come. Sarah nodded once, her face unreadable. "Agreed. Directive 7 is now in effect. Earth United Command is officially on a war footing." The holotable sprang to life with movement, lines of data, ship deployments, requisition orders, priority alerts. All across the solar system, silent alarms were triggered. Within hours, Earth's shipyards came alive. On Mars, enormous hangar doors that hadn't opened in decades rumbled apart, revealing warships that had been mothballed since the last century. Orbital drydocks flickered with blue welding light as construction crews worked around the clock to finish cruisers that had been sitting incomplete, waiting for a day when they would be needed. On Luna, missile silos opened like metal flowers, revealing payloads the public believed had been dismantled years ago. At the Jovian shipyards, the most secretive of all, a monster stirred from its slumber, the ECS Retribution, a dreadnought so massive it blotted out the stars when it moved. It was a ship designed never to be used unless humanity faced extinction. Its hull was plated with layers of armor thicker than most colony habitats, bristling with railgun batteries and missile pods capable of shattering a continent. And now, that monster was awake. 2 weeks later, Jupiter's L5 point became the staging ground for the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. The scene was breathtaking, hundreds of warships, carriers, destroyers, and cruisers holding position in perfect formation. Drone carriers released clouds of autonomous strike craft that swirled in tight, deadly patterns. The entire void seemed to hum with the presence of humanity's war machine. Captain Michael Harris stood on the command deck of the Retribution, staring at the fleet status holo. He had served in the Navy for 20 years, but nothing could have prepared him for this sight: the full might of Earth, Mars, Luna, and every allied colony united in one place. "Sir," Commander Blake Ramirez said from beside him, his face illuminated by the glow of the tactical displays. "Fleet reports ready status. Fuel reserves topped, ammunition bays full. Everyone's just waiting on your word." Michael said nothing for a moment. His gaze drifted to the forward viewport, where Jupiter's storms swirled silently. He thought of the colonies. Of the names on the casualty lists he had memorized over the past weeks, men and women who had never held a weapon, children who had never even seen Earth but had called those far-flung outposts home. He thought of the alien message, the contempt in that voice, the way they had promised humanity's extinction as casually as if they were discussing weather patterns. "Enough. Set jump coordinates for the Vega sector," he said at last. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the deck like a shot. "We find them, and we end this." "Aye, sir," Ramirez said, a grim smile forming. Orders rippled through the fleet. Drives spun up, glowing bright on sensors as they gathered energy for the massive jump. "Jump in 5 minutes," the helmsman called. The countdown felt eternal. Michael's fingers tightened around the rail in front of him as the deck vibrated under his boots. Around him, crew members sat tense and ready, waiting for the moment when reality itself would twist and hurl them across the stars. The jump ripped space apart with a flash of white light, and when it was over, humanity's fleet hung on the edge of the alien home system. "Contact," the sensor officer shouted almost immediately. "Multiple enemy ships inbound, forming up between us and the nearest planet." Michael stepped forward. "Show me." The holodisplay bloomed with red icons. Dozens of alien vessels, sleek, insect-like, bristling with weapons, moved into formation. More contacts appeared every second as reinforcements scrambled from orbit around the system's second planet. "They were waiting for us," Ramirez muttered. A transmission request flashed across the comms panel. "They're hailing," Rachel Carter said. Michael gave a sharp nod. "Put it through." The alien voice was just as cold as before, but now there was something almost amused in its tone. "Humans. You dare bring your fleet here? You dare challenge us in our own system? You will die screaming. Your ships will be shattered. Your homeworld will burn." The transmission ended in static. Michael stood silent for 3 heartbeats, then turned to his tactical officer. "Target locks? All ships have firing solutions, sir." He gave a single nod. "Then open fire." The void erupted in light. Railguns thundered silently, launching tungsten slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. Missile bays opened across the fleet, releasing waves of warheads that streaked forward like glowing comets. Drone swarms surged ahead of the fleet, darting and weaving between enemy formations, peppering them with kinetic fire. The aliens returned fire almost instantly. Brilliant lances of plasma cut across the darkness, vaporizing 2 human destroyers in the opening salvo. But the fleet pressed forward relentlessly. "Enemy flanking group destroyed," Ramirez reported. "Carrier groups launching second wave." The holomap lit up with expanding cones of destruction as human firepower chewed through alien lines. Still, the enemy fought viciously, their ships maneuvering like predators, striking wherever they saw weakness. "Pull the Atlas squadron back behind the cruisers," Michael barked. "We'll cover them with missile salvos." The order was carried out with precision. For every human ship that burned, 2 alien vessels were reduced to drifting wreckage. And still the fleet advanced. "Enemy flagship identified," Rachel called. "Their shields are failing." Michael's jaw tightened. This was the moment. "Board it," he said, his voice low but carrying across the deck. "I want their commander alive." This wasn't just a battle anymore. This was justice. The alien flagship drifted crippled in space, its once glimmering hull scorched black where human railgun slugs had punched clean through. Fires burned in open compartments, venting glowing gas into the void. Its escorts were gone, reduced to silent debris fields, and for the first time since the war began, the aliens were running. But this ship would not be allowed to run. On the bridge of the ECS Retribution, Captain Michael Harris stood like a statue, arms folded, eyes fixed on the tactical display that showed the massive vessel slowly tumbling. Boarding pods away, Commander Blake Ramirez reported, his voice calm despite the tension humming through the deck. Marine strike teams are breaching the hull now. Michael didn't move. His gaze was locked on the display, watching the blue indicators representing human Marines as they cut into the enemy's wounded flagship. Somewhere deep inside that ship was the one being responsible for the massacre of Vega 7 and Atlas Station. He intended to look that being in the eye. Inside the alien ship, the corridors were a nightmare of smoke, flickering lights, and the hiss of ruptured conduits. The atmosphere smelled of burning metal and something sharp, chemical, like scorched insect carapace. Sergeant Kyle Monroe led the first squad down a corridor slick with coolant. His helmet HUD tagged life signs ahead, clusters of alien warriors moving to block them. Contact front. Monroe barked. Pulse rifles flashed, filling the corridor with blue-white light as the Marines cut through the defenders. Alien screeches echoed down the hall, but the squad kept moving, clearing room after room until they reached a massive blast door near the core of the ship. "This is it," Monroe said. "Bridge in trance. Setting breaching charges." The Marines crouched low as the charges blew, the shockwave rattling the bulkheads. Smoke billowed, and then they were inside. The alien bridge was vast and domed, lit by the pale glow of dying consoles. At its center stood the warlord tall, with chitinous armor plates and four blade-like arms, still radiating an aura of defiance despite the wreckage around him. He turned slowly as the Marines entered, mandibles clacking, and let out a sound that was almost a laugh. "So," he hissed through the translator unit on his harness, "the prey comes to finish the hunt." "Stand down!" Monroe shouted. "On your knees, hands visible." The warlord spread his arms wide instead, as though inviting them to shoot. "You think you've won anything, little mammals? You've only bought yourselves more time before extinction." The Marines stunned him with a concussive round before he could move again. He collapsed to the deck, hissing, and was dragged toward the waiting boarding pod. Hours later, the alien warlord stood in chains on the bridge of the Retribution. The deck was silent except for the faint hum of engines. Every crew member turned to watch as Michael Harris stepped forward. Up close, the warlord was even more imposing, nearly 8 feet tall, carapace scorched from battle, glowing eyes filled with venomous hatred. Michael stopped just meters from him. "You killed 500,000 of my people," he said quietly. "Men, women, children. You turned our colonies to ash. Why?" The warlord's mandibles clicked, and the translator hissed. "Because you were weak," it said. "Because we could. You are nothing to us, vermin infesting this corner of the stars. We were cleansing a nest." The bridge went utterly still. Michael's expression did not change. He turned to the Marines holding the chains. "Space him." The warlord shrieked, thrashing violently as the guards hauled him toward the airlock at the rear of the bridge. "Wait," the translator crackled. "You would kill a warlord of the Kratil Empire? You?" The airlock cycled with a hiss. A second later, silence. The alien was gone, hurled into the endless dark. Michael turned back toward the command deck. "Open a channel," he ordered. Lieutenant Rachel Carter's fingers moved quickly over the console. "Channel open, sir. Linked to every beacon in the system. We can broadcast wideband to the entire sector." Michael nodded slowly, then stepped into the center of the bridge. His image appeared on every active display across the fleet, across the alien system, and soon, across the entire network of jump relays leading back to human space. He drew in a slow breath. "This is Captain Michael Harris of the Earth United Fleet," he said, his voice carrying like a hammer blow. "To those who attacked us, know this: you sought to erase us, and in doing so you have united us. You murdered our civilians, our families, our children. You believed we would break. You believed we would kneel." He leaned closer to the camera, his expression carved from iron. "But humanity does not kneel." His words echoed across the bridge, across every ship listening, across the galaxy itself. If you harm us again, if you take one more life, we will not merely respond. We will find you, we will tear apart your fleets, we will burn your strongholds to the ground. There will be no safe place left for those who prey on humanity." He gestured toward the viewport, where the burning remains of the alien planet's defense network could still be seen glowing faintly. "This is your first and only warning. The age of humanity's silence is over." Rachel closed the channel. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the low thrum of the ship's engines and the faint hiss of cooling consoles. Then Ramirez stepped forward, looking at Michael with something between pride and grim understanding. "The whole sector heard that," he said quietly. "Good," Michael replied. "They need to know what happens when you spill human blood." Hours later, the fleet began to withdraw, leaving behind a system littered with the shattered wrecks of alien ships. As the Retribution turned toward the jump point, Michael stood by the forward viewport, watching the stars wheel slowly. The war was not over. Not yet. But something fundamental had changed. For centuries, humanity had dreamed of its place among the stars, believing itself a curious newcomer, eager to belong. Now, for the first time, the galaxy knew Earth's true nature. They would no longer see humanity as prey. They would see them as something far more dangerous. Michael let out a slow breath, the weight of the day heavy on his shoulders, but beneath that weight was something colder, sharper. Resolve. The galaxy had been warned. And if they didn't listen, humanity would make sure there was nothing left to warn.